But
this young lady, I don't know nothing about her. I don't know her. He was on his first baby mama. That's who he was messing with at the time when he was messing with my daughter.
Oh,
he was
what
with his
a
first
mess!
baby mama.
It's like y'all playing tic-tac-toe or something. I mean, you just here,
yeah.
there, everywhere. What?
You don't help us with anything. I have to come out my pocket and help pay rent. You don't do nothing. I have to get a second job just to help my mom in the house. You don't do anything. Is it because you ain't had no money to pay for no DNA test? Is that because?
Ms. Kavanaugh has been on paternity court previously and got the wrong man. The man she brought to court turned out not to be the father of her son Malcolm. Now she believes the father of her baby is her mother's friend, Mr. Spence. You heard that right. Here is how it starts out.
You're a friend of Miss Kavanaugh's mother and say her daughter made several attempts to have sex with you. Then after a lapse in judgment, you admit you did sleep with her. Now you say there's a chance you could be Malcolm's father. Miss Kavanaugh.
Yes, Your Honor.
Your mother's friend?
Yes, Your Honor. I know how bad it sounds. I was trying to try to seduce him. I was wearing inappropriate things around him.
And why were you doing this?
In all honesty, I was drinking a lot.
Yeah, you were drinking a lot. But most people who sleep a lot do not eventually end up in paternity court testing if the father of their kid is their mom's friend. So something is deeply wrong here. Let us find out what it is.
Friend of your mother's, or did you know whether or not he was intimate with your mother?
That I do not know of. I just know that they were really good friends. Like, that's all I know.
Mr. Spence?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you enlighten the court on the nature of your relationship with Miss Kavanaugh's mother?
It's like she said, we just friends.
Did you end up being in a position you were sleeping with your really good friend's daughter?
It was like she said, came over a couple of times. She was in inappropriate gear. The first time, I shunned it off. Second time, I said, hey, watch yourself. Third time, it's starting to look good.
And then fourth time, they got down to making a baby, and that baby might be little Malcolm here. At least that is what Ms. Kavanaugh thinks. But now to the million-dollar question. How many times did this baby-making activity happen?
Times were you intimate with her?
Once.
Just once?
Just once.
Just one time, Ms.
Your
Kavanaugh?
Honor, I do not believe it to be one. It was at least twice, but that's just how I remember it.
So, when you found out you were pregnant, did Mr. Spence's name come to mind immediately?
No, Your Honor. It really was like, I thought Mr. Bowles was the dad. Well, after the court, I started thinking, well, he could be a possibility that Mr. Spence is the father. And I texted him and I asked him, when was the last time we had sex? He told me it was the end of October. So
And when was Malcolm born?
He was born July 9th.
Yeah, so the dates kind of match up. She indeed slept with Mr. Spencer around the window of conception. The question now is, how many people did Ms. Kavanaugh sleep with around the window of conception? Let us see what her mom has to say.
How did it feel to learn that your daughter was sleeping with your very good friend?
It was very devastating, just because the relationship was inappropriate. I felt betrayed. Actually, when we were together, like all in the same room, I noticed them looking at each other a little differently.
You did?
Yeah, I knew my gut.
The woman's intuition.
Exactly. So I questioned each of them. They each denied that anything had happened. Then basically how I found out, one day Megan was angry with me and we had kind of a little tiff or whatever. It was kind of a big tiff, but when we did, she blurted out that you were right, and I did sleep with Ken.
This is just a messy situation all around. Ms. Kavanaugh's mom cannot believe that her close friend could be the father of her grandson. And at this point, he has to be, right? 2 men have been tested previously. The third has to be the charm, right? Let us see.
Did come on to him, and it was probably really a strong come on.
You did admit that in court.
But he is a grown man. He could have told me no.
It goes both ways.
What would you like to add, Mr. Smith?
First of all, I didn't mean for this to happen. Yes, I got weak. Yes, I am a man. Yes, I could have told you no. Told you no thrice. As far as the baby being mine, I don't know. That's why I'm here to clear this up.
Well, that is good. Mr. Spence is here to take responsibility if the baby indeed belongs to him. That is a good thing, right? Well, it is not such a good thing considering the fact that he has a tiny domestic complication of his own. Here is that complication.
Are you in a relationship?
I'm married.
Okay. Now I do understand why you're hoping he's not your child.
That's not what I'm hoping.
What are you hoping?
I hope for the truth. Doubt is, first of all, it was only one.
The window of conception that she described. Baby born in July.
I'm there, yeah.
So you within the window of conception.
I'm in
You
that
don't
period.
dispute that?
That I do not dispute.
All
That's
right.
why I'm here.
So if he does not dispute the window of conception and admits that he actually slept with her within the period in question, what is he actually disputing? Well, you see, Mr. Spence believes that Ms. Kavanaugh did a little bit of extra sleeping around.
What did she say?
I'm sleeping with other people. I got a boyfriend.
Oh,
Which was Mr. Bowles at the time, Your Honor.
understood.
Yeah.
But we also know that there was Mr. Scott, too.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, I
He's
do
been
like that.
tested and he's here. So describe your relationship with Mr. Scott.
I was hanging out at the pool one day. I met him. He told me he had a girlfriend and kids and all this other stuff. So we didn't do anything the very first night, we just drank a little bit, got to know each other. Second night, we hung out, and yes, we did have intercourse. And that went on for like maybe a week or two. And we wore condoms every single time, except for one time.
And that is all a baby needs to happen, folks. Just one time without a condom, and before you know it, you are right here in paternity court. This is crazy because it means Ms. Kavanaugh was sleeping with 3 different men around her conception period. Here is what Mr. Scott thinks.
We understand that you had a sexual relationship with Miss Kavanaugh,
Yes, ma'am.
and it was during the window of conception. Do you agree with that?
Yes, ma'am.
You were not using protection,
I use protection every time. I don't recall, not using protection.
so you don't recall. Now, she says there was an instance when you did not, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you say there was no instance?
No, ma'am. I strongly, I don't believe that, Malcolm is mine.
You don't.
I don't.
Of course he does not. And why should he? This man has a wife and kids, so he has every incentive not to believe that Ms. Kavanaugh's baby belongs to him. Anyway, let's get to the bottom of this. What does the DNA test results say?
In the case of Kavanaugh v. Spence Scott, when it comes to the paternity of 1-month-old Malcolm Kavanaugh, Mr. Scott, you are not his father.
Okay, it seems Mr. Scott was saying the truth when he said he always uses a condom and that he isn't the father of Ms. Kavanaugh's baby. Now it is time to find out if Mr. Spence is the real father or there is a 4th potential father.
In the case of Kavanaugh versus Spence Scott, when it comes to the paternity of 1-month-old Malcolm Kavanaugh, Mr. Spence, you are not his father.
Mr. Pace says he will be crushed if he finds out that he is not the biological father of his son, Prince. But he says that is a real possibility because Prince's mom cheated on him with his best friend. And this is how that explosive episode begins.
Caught between the man you're in love with and his best friend.
Yes, Your Honor.
You admit you made a horrible mistake when you slept with both men, but you say you're still hoping with all your heart that Mr. Pace is your son's biological father. Mr. Randolph, you're Mr. Pace's best friend
Yes.
and the second potential father of Prince.
Yes, Your Honor.
So there is a lot on the line for me. That's my little man. We watch TV together. We ball. I'm feeding him cereal in the morning. He's like my real little buddy, and he looks up to me, and I don't want to let him down, basically.
You can see that Mr. Pace really, really loves his son. These cases, where the father loves the son so much and isn't a deadbeat, are the most heartbreaking on paternity court, especially when the man ends up not being the father. Let's see how Mr. Pace even met Miss Fobbs.
Phone number. We went out on a few dates. We kind of bonded real quick. She ended up moving in with me and Mr. Randolph. Shortly after her moving in, she became pregnant. Once we found that out, being that she wanted her own space, we ended up moving into another spot together. And that's where I've been ever since, as far as in the relationship with her.
Wait, what? So Mr. Pace met Miss Fobbs, liked her, and then she quickly moved into the apartment he was living with his best friend? First of all, who moves in with a lover so quickly? This is one strange case. So when did this love triangle begin?
He works at night, so he's never really home with me, and I kind of took that as a feeling of neglect. The situation with me and Randolph was a mistake, a big mistake, the worst mistake I think I ever made.
Oh, we know that excuse well in paternity court. The man gets busy, and the woman starts seeing that as a sign of neglect. And what does she do? Does she talk to him? No. She sleeps with another man, or in this case, his best friend. So how did Mr. Pace even find out?
Well, that's interesting. We were actually in a heated argument at the time that it occurred, but it kind of just got blurted out to me that Mr. Randolph could be a potential father for Prince. Prince was 2.5 at the time, so it was very emotional for me, being that it's my best friend and this is my woman.
This is crazy. Can you imagine how emotionally upsetting this would be? You literally could not make this up if you tried. This is something out of a Hollywood flick. But what does Mr. Randolph have to say about this craziness?
Well, to answer that, Your Honor, I wasn't in the right state of mind. We both was intoxicated. You know, he was out promoting club, and she used to come home from the club intoxicated and, you know, looking for him. He's not there. Me and her talk, and, you know, one night the talk led to something else.
And so was this sex unprotected?
Honestly, Your Honor, I was intoxicated.
Yeah, you were intoxicated, but that is no excuse. And the fact that they did not even bother to get protection is just insane. I cannot even imagine how difficult all of this has to be for Mr. Pace. Here is what Mr. Randolph think about the chances of being the kid's father.
Mr. Randolph, you submitted to the court a childhood photo of yourself
Yes.
and Prince.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you think you look pretty much exactly alike?
Little characteristics, forehead maybe, mouth, but
When you look at this picture, Ms. Fobbs, do you see any resemblance?
No, I don't.
None.
None.
Of course you don't. But here is the thing. These pictures prove that there is a very real possibility that Mr. Randolph could be the child's father. When did this secret even get out? Let's see.
Yeah, I didn't tell him when he was 4. I told him when he was 2.
2.5.
Helped as well.
No, Sam is not in Prince's life. As far as it goes, Prince knows
Like an uncle.
an uncle, and he knows Byron as his dad. That's the way I want it to stay. I don't want him to grow confused later on down the line, asking me questions as of why didn't I disclose this to him, and him to be feeling like he's neglected and he grew up never knowing.
Well, that is good for you, Ms. Fobbs, but you could have avoided this entire appearance in court if you just did something as basic as not sleep with your boyfriend's best friend. Anyway, here is more.
Mr. Randolph, over 10 to 12, 15 years almost. I don't want to say bros before, but I do want to say that men kind of have a bond that women don't have. Our relationship is under wraps. It's a stressful situation because I look at him and I see this kind of would leave the resentment that I have for him on the table.
That is actually a pretty mature answer from Mr. Pace here. Not a lot of people would have the presence of mind to put all enmity aside in the interest of the kid, but that is what he has done. Now it is time to find out who the baby's father is.
Case of Pace versus Fobbs Randolph. When it comes to 4-year-old Prince Fobbs, and whether Mr. Pace or Mr. Randolph is his biological father, it has been determined by this court, Mr. Pace, you are not his father.
That sucks. Mr. Pace really loves this kid and is broken that the child isn't his. That leaves only one possibility, right? Mr. Randolph definitely has to be the father, right? Well, let's see.
Continuing on with the next result. It has also been determined by this court, Mr. Randolph, you are not.
I don't know what to say.
Do you know who Prince's father is?
No.
That's me. I'm Prince's father.
It is a full house in court today. On one side, we have Mr. Lang and his mother, Ms. Lang. They believe that Mr. Lang isn't the father of Janelle. On the other side, we have Ms. Brown and her mother, and they are claiming that the Langs just want to get out of taking care of the baby. Here is how that starts out.
Why are you so certain this child isn't your son's?
Miss Brown slept with my son's best friend, from the sandbox best friend. I don't think she know whether it's my son's or Mr. Dixon's.
No, that's not true, Your Honor. I've never slept with Mr. Dixon. Mr. Dixon and Mr. Lang have been not friends for a while. They've been going at it, trying to fight each other, trying to find each other. We was on and off for 2 years because he cheated on me every other day. I find out about more than 100 girls.
Yeah, except this dude has some clone somewhere or is a reincarnation of King Solomon. He absolutely isn't cheating on you with 50 to 100 girls. That just isn't happening. And now it's time for the moms to try to out-psycho one another.
Doing his cheating, were you sleeping with anybody else as well?
Not that we know of, Your Honor.
And it's none of your business.
Everything on the list, my business.
No, it's none of your business. Are you in the bed with him? Are you in the bed with him?
I don't need to
Can I say? In the bed with him? So you need to mind your business.
I know my son the way you do.
This is crazy. Are the kids in the relationship or the mothers are? Because these women have so much bad blood, you'd think they'd been stuck together in an awful marriage for decades. And it gets worse.
That thing over there.
That thing
Every
over
time
there.
they got it,
Ladies, listen.
Over with.
You want to be respectful in the courtroom for your children, because ultimately, let's be honest, there's a child here.
These women are really going at it and are frankly making a mess of the whole case. We don't even understand what is going on. If these moms are so disrespectful in the court, it's little wonder their kids have gotten into a paternity case. Anyway, here is what Mr. Lang thought when he heard that Ms. Brown was pregnant.
Did you have any doubts at that time?
Not at that time, no, I didn't.
And what made you start to have doubt?
When Mr. Dixon got in the picture, because the baby she's pregnant with could possibly be his.
So
leaving her
she
voicemail
informs you that she's having a baby and you're the father and you are happy about it.
Yes.
Don't be too happy because the baby's mine.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, that is how things get really awkward. No matter what a man thinks, if another man walks up to him and tells him that the baby he believes is his isn't really his, he will flip out and start doubting. So what does Ms. Brown think of these accusations?
So why would he do that?
Because, like I said before, he was trying to make Mr. Lang mad.
When you guys were arguing in the kitchen, and there was no doubt she's my grandbaby, so I was happy. But he said she had sex with my best friend. That is a lie.
Wow. That is when Ms. Lang flipped out and thought that this baby might not be her granddaughter and might not belong to her son. These are crazy accusations, but Ms. Brown insists that everyone is lying. Here is how she puts it.
And exactly that time is around the exact time I got pregnant.
You say that's your window of conception?
Yes, that was in middle August, into August.
And so now the baby's born?
Yes.
Mr. Lang was there when the baby was born?
Yes, he was there the whole labor and delivery.
He signed the birth certificate?
Yes, he did.
All right, Jerome, let me see that evidence.
If that is true, that is an extremely nasty thing to say. Does she think she has a DNA test in her eyes or what? How does that even happen? How would she be able to tell? This is one psycho grandma. And yes, it gets worse. Here is what Mr. Lang and Ms. Lang thought.
Think the baby was yours?
He thought it was his. Can I interject right there? I said, oh, look at your baby, woo, 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 and all that. And then he pulled the hat off.
That is his daddy hairline. Stop playing.
Girl, please. That's what I said too. So he pulled it back. I said, Jimmy, let that go.
Ms. Brown insists that even after the baby was born, there was no doubt that she belonged to Mr. Lang. So she thinks everything they are bringing up right now is just a way to get out of child support. Here is what Ms. Brown thinks.
2 years we was in a relationship. Every time we'd be on Facebook arguing anything, his mom would get on Facebook on her post and start getting into it every single time.
Ms. Lang,
now what?
Now, so what?
Are you arguing with kids on the Facebook?
Yeah.
Well, it is time to see what the DNA results have to say. Ms. Brown has been so cool, calm, and collected in this courtroom, and I can't help but think that the baby belongs to Mr. Lang, but maybe I am wrong. Let us see what the DNA test result has to say.
In the case of Lang versus Brown, when it comes to 1-year-old baby Janelle, Mr. Lang, you are not the father.
Are you?
Ms. Stovall says that she wants nothing more than to prove to Mr. Hines that he is the father of her baby. But Mr. Hines says he has overwhelming proof that Ms. Stovall is a psycho who cheated on him, and so he is definitely not her baby's father. Here is how it starts out.
So, Ms. Stovall, why are today's results so important to you?
Today's results are very important to me because I really love Mr. Hines, and I just want to prove today that this is his son so that we can be together and hopefully get married one day.
Okay, so Mr. Hines thinks that there are just too many stories about Ms. Stovall, and that stops him from really taking her seriously and accepting that her kid belongs to him. So what are those stories?
When I was 17, she was about 21. It just didn't work out at that period of time. The first instance we ever got into was we exchanged passwords. She went through my stuff, I went through her stuff. She has a lot of instances where she'll run off. I won't have track of her for hours on end, maybe even days. Times where her phone get cut off, where it'll go straight to voicemail. She'll run off with friends.
Wow. That seems like a lot. Mr. Hines thinks he knows Ms. Stovall enough, and from what he's seen of her, she is a cheater who might be trying to make him a victim of paternity fraud. Ms. Stovall, on the other hand, insists that this is a lie.
Your Honor, he's very jealous. He's very jealous and very overprotective.
Besides the messages, do you have anything concrete, Mr. Hines?
Yes, when she gets mad and when she gets frustrated, she sends me pictures with other guys. She sends me text messages questioning the paternity, saying, I can't believe you're trying to take him and you don't even know if he's yours. One is a picture of her when she got into it with her mother over there. That's when she sent me the messages making me question the paternity.
Like Judge Lake says, once you ring that bell, you cannot unring it. The fact that Ms. Stovall sent these pictures and is now trying to paint herself as some poor victim here is just insane work, and it gets worse.
Photo up.
I don't know what that's about.
That's just an example of that picture she'll send me.
Did you send him that picture, Miss Stovall?
No, Your Honor.
Is that you in the picture?
That's me.
How did he get the picture?
Probably off my Facebook.
Apparently that's her pose. Ms. Stovall is basically asking us all not to care whatsoever about these pictures because they are just innocent attempts at riling up Mr. Hines, but that does not even make any sense. What makes this whole case even creepier is the fact that they met when Ms. Stovall was 21 and Mr. Hines was 17.
Her with different men. I keep seeing pictures. I keep seeing text messages. I keep seeing bad interactions.
So why do you stay?
I stay because I see a potential in her that even if she doesn't see in herself, I see it. And I'm not gonna act like I have been all faithful in this relationship.
Wait, what? So Mr. Hines has cheated as well, but he has cheated in a good way because he does not lie about it? So before cheating, he texts her and tells her, hey, I am about to go cheating? Because that is the only way he isn't lying about it. Anyway, why exactly does Mr. Hines believe this kid isn't his?
Okay, me and Miss Stovall got into something. She was living with me and my mother and my stepfather at the time because we all had an apartment together. She was living there. July 19th, and after we'd been back together for a couple days, she goes off to the hospital or whatever with her mom and calls me and tells me that she's pregnant, crying.
So according to Mr. Hines, the conception timeline just does not work. For the baby to have been born on March 29th, they would have slept together during the period that Ms. Stovall ran off with another man. And since they did not, then he believes the baby isn't his. Here is what Ms. Stovall thinks about that.
After his incident, I did come back around July 3rd, and I did find out that I was pregnant, but I got pregnant like around his birthday, maybe.
When is that?
June 22nd.
But he said you left the house and you all were broken up.
Well, I left maybe for 4 days, but it was the end of June.
Well, there you have it. Mr. Hines stands by that calendar point blank and insists it is the truth and nothing but the truth. But Ms. Stovall says even if she left, it does not matter because they were always sleeping together, broken up or not. And now, there is more.
She's gone. I can't have sex with somebody that's gone. I had sex with her when she came back on
I was
that
gone for 4 days.
So absolutely no intimacy, no sex during all the dates in red. You're saying you were not intimate with Miss Stovall.
She was gone.
She was gone. Who do you think the father is?
One of her friends on Facebook that's always talking to her.
It is literally her word against his. How do we know who is telling the truth? Simple, we don't. All we can do is get the DNA test result and see what they have to say. And here is what the test reveals.
Mr. Hines, you are the father. Told you. How's it feel, Mr. Hines?
This is my first son. And I had to hold back all my emotions until I knew. I'm really happy.
Ms. Englund says that Mr. Kaiser is a deadbeat and a bum for denying her 6-month-old kid Isaac for no reason. Mr. Kaiser says that is a lie, and there are a lot of reasons for him to think the baby isn't his. Here is how that story begins.
You acknowledge one child with Ms. Englund, but say Isaac is not yours. You say that during your separation from Ms. Englund, she slept with another man, and you are 100% sure he is the father.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, classic man. Ms. Englund says she took this man from the dirt to the top, and now he is behaving like he's never seen her before. Mr. Kaiser insists that classiness is the game, and King of Classy is his name. That is kind of weird, considering that both of them are probably doing the most non-classy thing ever right now, which is arguing over the paternity of a child. But it gets even more non-classy.
Y'all, she knows why I denied the baby. She stayed gone for 3 months with this other man.
Did you move in with another man,
Yes,
Miss
Your Honor.
England?
Yes, Your Honor, I did.
And so during that time, you had one child.
Yes,
Right.
everything is an argument.
A paternity question, it permeates every aspect of your life.
I understand what I'm going through, y'all. The whole time, I accepted her back, true enough.
Oh, so they are living together right now and are even in a relationship. But Mr. Kaiser says he only did this because he already has a 2-year-old with her. If he didn't, he would never have taken her back. And there is more.
She was still pregnant by his other man the whole time we were together, y'all.
Your Honor, that's
I-
not,
I-
that
So
is
the
not
whole
true.
time,
back.
let me ask you this, Mr. Kaiser, the whole time she was pregnant and you accepted her back, you're thinking the whole time and she's pregnant by another man, or were you
Right.
thinking this could potentially be my child as well?
I didn't think it was my child, y'all.
Your Honor.
I didn't think it was my child.
This is just messy. So messy. Ms. England here works day and night and brings money back home to Mr. Kaiser's house, and she also thinks he is nothing but a bum. Mr. Kaiser says this is a lie, but seriously, if Ms. England is working this hard to stay with a bum, why doesn't she just leave? Here is what she says about that.
You would have been taking care of business at home. No other man would have been able to even talk to me, but you were too busy fighting.
I understand that.
You were too busy finding a reason to argue at any given second.
So obviously there was a breakdown in the relationship.
Your Honor, my sister passed away.
Oh, we have seen this story so many times. The woman feels that the man isn't giving her enough attention, and then another man starts giving her the attention she wants. And before you know it, the other man has moved in and things get very awkward. But here is more.
And the only reason that I left him, Your Honor, is because the other man was paying more attention than he was. If you
At
have
the
your,
time-
if your woman is working 12 hours graveyard, when your woman comes home, wouldn't you like to have a little breakfast or she goes to sleep? I had to put our baby to sleep when I'm coming home at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, talk your stuff, Mr. Kaiser. Yeah, she had to work 12 hours and then come back at 5 a.m. to put her baby to sleep despite the child's father being at home. But guess what? She did not have to do that every day, maybe twice a week? Isn't that just considerate? And it gets worse again.
Your Honor, on the 25th of March is the last time I had been sexual with the other man.
Keep going.
Okay. On the 28th, me and Mr. Kaiser, we got back together. I came back to where he was at with our children. We had unprotected sex on the 28th, the 29th, the 30th, the 31st, and the 1st. And my conception date is the 30th of March.
Well, that settles it then. If Ms. England is saying the truth, then Mr. Kaiser would be the obvious father of this baby. But if Ms. England is lying, well, she would obviously not lie so blatantly, right? Anyway, here is more.
Y'all, the reason why I'm not buying this, y'all, is because she left with the other guy on the 3rd.
I did
She
not
wasn't
have
pregnant.
intercourse with
You
that man
can't-
anymore.
you can't- We slept together from the 28th until the 31st, right?
No,
she,
till the 1st.
she left on the 30th with the other guy.
3rd of April, I left and went back, but I never had intercourse with that man again.
How do I know
With my
that, Your Honor?
coworker. You don't know that. You just have to go off my word. That baby's also tongue-tied. Genetic trait.
Yeah, we see what you were saying, and that sounds like a really bad reach. So his dad did not have it. But what of if maybe his father had it? And if his father doesn't have it, then maybe his grandfather had it. Here is more.
Another part of the proof. What is that?
Yes, ma'am. Those teeth that he has in his mouth, he was born with those teeth. Those are called neonatal teeth. Mr. Kaiser's first cousin's child was born
In Mr. Kaiser's
Y'all,
family.
I haven't heard
Yes,
about
Your
that
Honor.
big genetic trait, though. About the
You should do your research.
I haven't heard about that big genetic.
There is no research that says 100% that if he has a tongue tie, his child will have a tongue tie.
Well, you cannot say that Ms. England does not know her science. She is willing to bet all she has that this child belongs to Mr. Kaiser because he has these genetic traits. So let us see what the DNA test has to say about that.
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Kaiser, you are not the father.
Are you sure?
I'm sorry, Mr. Kaiser.
You sure? Are you
I'm
sure?
so sorry.
It's gotta be a mistake, right? It's a mistake, right?
I am so sorry, but it is not a mistake.
Mr. Whistler owes almost $21,000 in back child support for a child he insists isn't his. He says his paycheck is garnished each week, leaving him only $70 a week to survive on. Here is how that story starts.
You admit you've always known the plaintiff may not be your son's biological father. He's been held financially responsible for him. Yet regardless of whether or not today's results prove he's the father, he really just needs to to get over it.
Wait, what is going on here? She knows that he might not be the father, but she thinks he just needs to man up and get over it. Get over realizing that a kid you owe child support for isn't yours? And it gets worse.
We were in a relationship in late 2005. She comes to me and tells me she's pregnant. I always ask her, are you for sure it is mine?
You had doubts from the beginning.
Yes, ma'am. You know, the doctor said right there, no, unable to have children.
She just does not care at all. But this is such a strange defense considering the fact that Ms. Frazier must have been getting the money from the child support. So whether or not she asked for it does not matter at all.
Other guy that you say you always put his name on all the paperwork. Did other guy sign
What about the birth certificate?
Him to have
You
your last
told
name.
me, you told me if I wanted that kid
To have your
my
last
last
name.
name, I would be there for the birth.
Wait, what? She does not even look remorseful at all. In fact, she looks so bored of this entire thing and looks like she would want nothing more than to just get the results and leave. How can someone be so uncaring about such an important question? And it gets worse. Of course it does.
He should be standing up if it's his kid. He should be standing up for it. Why am I reliable to pay this over $21,000 when I was working?
I ain't seen none of that
They were
money.
taking most of my paycheck.
I've never given it to me. I ain't got no child support one.
You never received any child support from the state of Missouri.
Okay, that means that Mr. Whistler is just paying back all the money that the state of Missouri spent on Ms. Frazier and her kids. So in a roundabout way, he does not owe Ms. Whistler. Instead, he owes the state. And the state is going to get that money back one way or the other. Of course, it gets worse.
I was to the impression it was my child. There was no
understand.
other ifs, ands, or buts about it. It was mine. And now, here, $21,000 later in debt.
And so you brought a witness. I'd like to hear
Yes,
from her.
ma'am.
Ma'am, please stand. Your relationship to Mr. Whistler is?
Fiance.
What do you know about this situation?
And that's what I have here on child support.
And this evidence is presented to prove what exactly, Ms. Owsley?
So not only is Mr. Whistler in this huge debt for a child that might not belong to him, he may also very well be on his way to jail for this child as well. This is crazy work, and it gets even worse.
Take people for less than the $21,000. I see them go for $5,000, $6,000. And it's just not right, you know, for me to be in this position because of this lady. I was under the impression that I could have been the only person that could have been this child's father.
That is crazy. So she knew there was another man throughout the pregnancy, never told him about this other dude, and watched him sign the birth certificate knowing he would be on the hook for child support. And Mr. Whistler was really serious about this lady.
I even went as far as after the child was born, a couple of weeks, I went to my boss and asked her for the money to loan me to get her a ring, and I proposed to this lady.
So were you aware, Ms. Frazier, that all of these years he's been on the hook and responsible for child support?
I've tried to get them over and over numerous times to test the other man, and so because I can't afford to pay for it.
Ms. Frazier keeps insisting that she's never asked for anything, but that does not really matter when Mr. Whistler is on the hook for child support as a result of a kid that may not be his. She just cannot even have a bit of empathy for him. This is one crazy lady, and here is more.
You submitted to the court pictures, and you feel like Dallas looks like you in many ways.
Yes, Your Honor, and I think there's a lot of resemblance.
And so if he is your son, you believe Mr. Whistler is your biological father?
As I was growing up, I did believe he was my father, but I was always told that it could be somebody else.
Have you ever met this other man?
Yes, I have.
Do you refer to him as Dad?
I did one time, but that was just to get his attention.
And there we have it. There is another man, but he isn't even half present. So Mr. Whistler is on the hook for everything because he signed the birth certificate. And Mr. Whistler does look a lot like Dallas. Let us see what the DNA test result has to say about that.
Mr. Whistler, you are not his father.
Dallas, that still is not going to change. I'm wanting to spend time with you.
I still love you too.
I am a man of my word. I just thank you, Your Honor.